y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, no. Here comes the, oh. Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like that. Yeah. Here comes the, no. Here comes the, oh. Here comes the.
And welcome back, Sooner Soundwaves, episode 17. I'm Iceberg. Alongside me is the Goodfella,
Boomer,
and St. Pablo.
Sooner.
Okay, first let's talk about episode 16 previous week. Over 100 views and even had a comment. Mr. Howard, 4405, we appreciate you. I personally think this is a good podcast too, so thank you for agreeing with me. That was episode 16. Now we jump into episode 17. CFP bracket has been announced. OU will host Alabama in Norman for a rematch of what was just a slugfest that happened in Tuscaloosa. Alabama, the Crimson Tide, will show up in Norman on December 19th at 7 p.m. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts about the rematch coming up?
bring back Friday Night Lights. We get to have that next week in Oklahoma. The state championships for high school football happened this past weekend, so all games should be final. There's no more games instead of Oklahoma happening. So to be able to have a home game in December on a Friday night, 7 o'clock, it doesn't get any better than that. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and everything else in between. So I'm excited that we get the opportunity to play next Friday at 7 o'clock. Again, it's tough to play a team 3 times. We played them last year, end of the year, won. This year, won. And to play the team again 3 times, I would be worried. The reason why I'm not as worried about this matchup is because of our defense. It's because of our defensive play caller. Brent Venables get his 3rd go around to scheme up a team that he has done an amazing job 2 times in a row calling Alabama's number. So when I look at it, I think the last game we played, then we had 3 turnovers that solidified the game. We had an amazing outing on special teams that I believe will repeat come next Friday. So I think if we, the things that we have in place right now, if everyone comes back and they're healthy on the defensive side, offensive side as well, I see this is a really good matchup. I was kind of torn at first looking at this and knowing that we had Bama again. Prior to that, they had us going against Notre Dame, which I felt good about. And I was kind of worried about the opportunity to play Bama for the 3rd time. But, we're in the playoffs and looking at what we've done before, I feel confident that, one, they have some injuries on their side that I'm not sure if they'll have all their starters ready to go for Friday, and not wishing, any ill will or any health concerns on any team. But, there's big factors. I think their tight end who had a great game against us the last matchup is expected to potentially be out come next Friday. And I do believe they have a running back or someone else that's scheduled to be out. And, they already struggled offensively on a run game. So, I think just going into that game, if we go in it to where we have, the same mentality, win the game, I think we'll be fine. I'm excited for the Sooners coming in next Friday for that Friday night kickoff in December.
Good fella. That was thank you for your take, and I think you covered a lot of the bases. I mean, the OU number 5 is it the number 5 rush defense? in the nation. And so, like, Alabama has clearly struggled running the ball against Georgia. I did hear someone say that, I've not heard this term, but that Georgia got Georgia dump trucked Alabama in the SEC championship. I listen. I know they're both good teams, and they're both beat up a lot. You heard a lot of that, but I'm not by any stretch Alabama. I think you guys talked about it last week, that if there was a draw, which, by the way, give you props, because you were exactly right in regards to this whole scenario. They were going to punish Alabama. And I got to be honest with you, last week when we were talking about it, I really thought that they would at least drop them one spot. They did not drop them at all. And so to be rematched against Alabama, and you articulated it very well, 3 times in a year, and beating a team twice in a year is difficult enough, that challenge. But again, going back to that run situation for Alabama, I mean, I think they had negative rushing yards against Georgia. And so that's been a theme for them too. They've had a very difficult time running the football. So they do become one-dimensional. And that kind of matchup with the home field advantage that you talked about as well, I think those are the kind of anomalies that tend to favor us. I wonder, to some level, and maybe you guys can elaborate on it too, if the Brent Venables, he schemes so well, and obviously the defense is very intelligent, and they were worried about signs and all this. Well, now the familiarity is so there. Iceberg, I think both of you, Goodfella, talked about, is also on that last play, him smiling so much against LSU because they've been working on it. They knew it. Well, he knows a lot, and he sees these formations, and he knows, and that's got to be a tremendous concern, particularly when he become one-dimensional like Alabama has been and most likely will be in this game. So I don't know. That's I know we're still about another week away here, so I don't know how deep we want to go into the Alabama game or not, but that's a bit of the first initial thoughts. And like I said, I think you really covered the breadth of that pretty well.
Yeah, obviously we'll come on next week and potentially talk more about Alabama and the matchup. What we won't see, in my understanding, is an injury report next week, because this is not an SEC conference game. That's an SEC conference rule. But I'll go back to what I said a week ago, and I want to be optimistic so bad. But this is a matchup I didn't want to see. I would have matched up against anybody else in this 12-team format other than Alabama. I do not like the rematch. I have full confidence in Brent Venables. I think Alabama is going to bring something else to the table. I don't know what it is. I don't know what they have time to install. I know a lot of their fan base wants it to be with another quarterback. Amazing how that turns on you pretty quick, because before we played them, remember, he was a Heisman contender, and ever since that game, he's not. And so, but I do have confidence in our defense. My hope is that we'll continue to play well defensively, and that we will be able to get more going on the offensive side of the ball. Sure. One of the things I've heard about the Iron Bowl, a lot of people were talking about how Brent Venables wrote the script to beat Alabama. Defensively, a lot of people are talking about how Brent Venables wrote the script to beat Alabama defensively, and Auburn tried to follow it, didn't really necessarily have the Johnnies and Joes to get it executed, and Georgia followed it and was able to pull out that 3-score victory. So that's interesting if it's true. Didn't necessarily have enough time to look at the games and determine whether or not that was the case. I did see the few plays that I did analyze of the SEC championship game. Georgia secondary was mixing it up with some weird stuff that I had never seen before, and I don't know if they got that from Venables or not. So, but what they did last time too was like they caught us checking with the sideline, and they had those 3 or 4 plays that weren't necessarily what you'd call trick plays, but kind of trick plays to catch us off guard. We had 3 turnovers that game. Really needed those 3 turnovers.
Should have been
But
4,
yeah.
but we'll take that the first one was an interception. That fumble, and they reversed it, and then we got the pick 6.
Yep. Yep. So Gentry Williams is out. He's had shoulder surgery. R. Mason Thomas we're unsure about his availability, but hopefully we get more information on that front next week when we're actually in game week. It's going to be an exciting time in Norman. Norman Public Schools, in terms of pre-K through 12, has canceled school for Friday. Graduation's happening on Saturday as scheduled. So the metropolis of the Oklahoma City metro area is going to be booming with people from all over the state and all over the state of Alabama this next weekend, due to the playoff game as well as the graduation that's scheduled for Saturday for the fall commencement. So exciting times. If you'd have told me we were going to host a playoff game 6 months ago,
surreal.
I'd have called you crazy.
Yeah, it's surreal. Like there's no way. We sit back and we had our first show back in August, and we're talking about OU and the plans, and just kind of squeaking by this year, just do better than last year conversation, into to wake up on Sunday to know that we got a bid in the playoffs. It's still like it's a bid in the playoffs with an offense that is bend don't break. That's huge, fellas, in the SEC, to be able to do what we've done this year on the defensive side, to truly carry this team into the playoffs. Like, let's go Venables. Like, he's solidified his time here. Like, he is the coach for the OU Sooners, and let's see what happens. Like, we're playing with house money right now. It doesn't matter. We're playing with house money. Let's figure it out.
Yep. No one expected OU to make the playoff field, in my opinion. And I think there's a lot of people that don't expect OU to win the rematch against Alabama. Obviously, Vegas, I think it opened up as a 1.5. I've seen some that are 2.5 already. Make a statement, because here's the thing, and let's just go ahead and jump into this CFP situation here. Just a second, as I try to pull up there we are. Pull up the bracket. Can you guys see the bracket?
It's coming up.
Yep.
There we go. All right. So here we are with the field of 12. And I'll just start with the obvious. Is it here we go. Hate the matchup. I honestly hate the first matchup with Bama more than I would hate moving on to Indiana. And I know a lot of people think that's crazy. That's the number 1 team. I think Indiana can be beat. I think Indiana can be beat with the defense that we have. I think Indiana can be beat with a Brent Venables, honestly, defensive mindset. Bama's going to be the trip, but I like our chances if we move on. The true story here, though, Notre Dame. Notre Dame has been sitting at 8 or 9 all through these rankings, and then gets bounced out at the final minute. And guys, I have to tell you, I hate the 2 group of 5s. In my opinion, if you have a situation where you have college football playoff games that have double-digit favorites, you've done something wrong.
Absolutely. Like, this, in no offense, I mean, I'm going to say this. This is not the March Madness. Like, This is not basketball, right? Like the chances of James, there's no chance they're going to beat Oregon. That's a percentage. There is a percentage, but if we're looking at that percentage, they don't belong there. Tulane, come on, it's almost, and you want to do conference games. You want to push Notre Dame to get into a conference game, to get into a conference. So shame on them for not joining a conference, but don't place them at 9, like the entire prediction, and then kick them out and idle the last week of the ranking. Like it just doesn't, like don't put them at 9. Like put them at 10, 11, anywhere else. But don't put them at 9 and get them to where they are now out. 2 teams jump them. You have Alabama, and then you have Miami jump them to push them out. Like put it. I don't know. I just think you don't put them there because they, why I can imagine, they're all there watching this playoff show, and all the players. I mean, that's just that's a tough watch. That's a tough way to get put out of playoffs in idle. But yeah, you gotta join the conference, Notre Dame. You have to. Knowing this, you have to. So, but they got a clause next year we can talk about a little bit later, which I don't agree with, but I'm not sure how they were able to get that contract to where they're able to now, if they're ranked in the top 12 starting next year, they get an automatic bid into the playoffs. Did you guys read that? You guys see that?
I did read that.
I didn't see it. No.
Yeah. So,
what I read it was an MOU that was put in place last year that takes effect next year.
Yeah, right. So next year, if they place in the top 12, they'll get an automatic bid into the playoffs.
Yeah. Well, that's, to me, that's ridiculous. But that you're saying that there would be that kind of an agreement, but the attrition of the SEC is a real deal. And I think there's a conundrum too with these conference championship games. And particularly, like you're saying, how difficult it would be to maybe beat an Alabama 3 times in a year's span. But when you play so many games, and Kirby Smart addressed this, and he has a tremendous amount of respect across the SEC and college football, when he was talking about adding a 9th game to the schedule and just imagining, adding that. So, in some ways, Alabama, they play this extra game. They don't get punished, which I thought was a fair move. I mean, now, granted, you hear the BYU talk, they got punished. But sure. I still think it was fair when it comes to Alabama, because there is that attrition factor in the SEC is real. And I don't say that just because we're here, but I say that because we've seen both conferences, but all 3 of us pretty eye tested out. When you watch the Sooners all these years, week after week is a real deal. I mean, there are athletes, and there are, I would imagine the training rooms and the injury lists seem to be quite a bit, more full in the SEC, because there's some serious, not to say that the other conferences are weak. I'm not saying that, but I am saying week by week, it's a little bit tougher. And then Alabama plays his conference game. And that's the one thing that has a lot of, I have a lot of optimism going into the playoffs, because I mean, they had an extra game, and you didn't get kicked out of the playoffs. Alabama didn't, because they played it. But man, they got beat up on even more in a team that, like Georgia, that can really put it to you when they're on schedule, and they are on fire right now. And yes, you got a little bit of time to recover, But I like the fact that, and you guys were saying this too, we've just kind of been sitting here at number 8. And granted, we are the only team in college football to win against 4 or 5 ranked teams in a schedule. Well deserved. The Sooners, any talk that the Sooners shouldn't be included, to me, was foolish talk that it would be out there. And I don't know if you've seen the FanDuel projection playoff odds. OU is the outside of the two, Tulane and James Madison. OU's like plus 5,000 to win a national title. They're next, right after them. Now I forget what their odds are. Pretty exponentially down. I don't typically throw money down on games, but man, I'm telling you, if you do, man, those are good odds, because I like where we're at and where we've been. And I like Alabama coming in after playing a conference game. And what did you get out of it?
Hey, let me ask you this. Are we getting to a point to where, I know this system is better than what we had before, but the value of a conference game, right? We won in terms of not being able to play in a conference game. We're going to come in more healthy. Again, that was a tough game, Alabama and Georgia. So we're in idle. So we're idle for 4 weeks before we play in another football game, getting everyone healthy. So do they rethink how they do conference titles? Like, what's the benefit of winning a conference title?
Okay, so the thank you for asking that question, because I think on that other spectrum is, if Alabama wins, they vault up possibly and get that first round bye and get that healing factor. So there's a tremendous risk and reward there. I'm saying in terms of the Sooners' advantage to this matchup, we got the risk side of Bama.
Yeah.
They didn't win, and they come in, beat up a bit, and they're a physical football team. But I'm not making excuses for Alabama by any stretch. No one can or should. This is a very difficult matchup. But nonetheless, that point being made. Now, if they would have won, that would have been a tremendous advantage for Alabama, because they probably would have been in the top 4 and had that first and desperately needed first round bye. But that is the risk reward of that particular conference game. BYU, their schedule wasn't as tough and all that, but they lose 2 times all year, right, to Texas Tech, who's a top 4 seed. So they do get punished in their conference game. So I hear what you're saying, Goodfella. I think that's a talking point that's been out and about. I don't know. I mean, it is a conundrum. I like the conference games, but there's also tremendous risk there too. And to be honest with you, I think that question that you brought up may be answered this next weekend, because if Alabama comes in really flat and it looks as if that really was a risk, that because ultimately you're going for a national title, even though SEC championship is tremendously valuable, but you come in really flat, banged up, beat up, go on the road, and let's just say that the Sooners dominate at home, which would be amazing. It would be a beautiful deal to actually sit through a game where we're doing what Georgia did in the fourth quarter, just sitting back and enjoying it, man. But I don't anticipate that. But you know what I'm saying? You may get your answer next week. And if they come in and win, then maybe it's a moot point.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, back to the conference championship thing, you got Big Ten, okay? OSU, Ohio State lost, right? They got punished. SEC championship, Alabama lost. They stayed. Big 12 championship, BYU lost to the same team that they had already lost to. Okay, so it wasn't like another point metric, in my opinion, and they dropped completely out or dropped. So that to me is the argument. that every single, except for the ACC championship, which is a complete debacle.
Yeah, it's crazy.
That conference is just, I mean,
I thought the Big Ten was. Now the Big Ten is not bad, guys. It really is not. It's really not.
Yeah. But every single, of the 4 conference championship games of the Power 4, I'm not going to say that mattered, but mattered. Of the Power 4 conference championship games, 3 of them had playoff impacts, and 2 out of the 3, no matter the situation, had movement.
Yeah.
Except for the loser of the SEC championship, which was weird. And I all along last week, I was hoping they would do anything in their power to keep from a rematch. And St. Pablo, you admitted you thought I was an idiot because that's the way it was set up, was they would move, even though they wouldn't be punished they wouldn't be punished in terms of playoffs, but they would be, we'll say disciplined with a lower ranking possibly, but they weren't. And, you got another rematch too. The Tulane Ole Miss game is a rematch, a blowout rematch. And that's another thing that I feel like the committee could have tweaked, especially with the Lane Kiffin thing. Like, you can mess around with Ole Miss and nobody's going to complain. You could have put them at 5 or put them at 7 to keep away from, maybe not 5. You could have put them at 7 to keep away from that rematch. But instead, they chose to just, have them rematch. I think the game was like 45-20. It was bad. Now they're calling it Tulane versus No Lane. Okay. That's the name of the Ole Miss Tulane matchup. So anyway, I was surprised what they did with Notre Dame, but I do think it needed to happen. But I do disagree with the fact that they teased them, in my opinion, with being in the playoff, sitting idle, and then bumping completely from I don't even remember, was it last week? They were either 9 or 10 to out. I think they were 10 because it was a matchup of 8-9 OU Alabama. So anyway, 45-10. I just looked it up. Ole Miss beat Tulane 45-10. Okay, so there's a double-digit favorite right there in 6 versus 11. There's a double-digit favorite over here with Oregon and James Madison. And I think there is an argument that you put a Notre Dame in there. I don't know why we have 2 group of 5s. I mean, I know there's a rule behind it, but that is just asinine. Notre Dame makes more sense at 11 or 12 than either one of 11 or 12. I think both 11 and 12 have coaching changes, if I'm not mistaken. Just that those 2 games aren't going to be good for TV. They're going to be good for Ole Miss and Oregon to have another week of practice and look like gangbusters before they go in to face Georgia and Texas Tech. So I did think it was interesting that every conference championship loser was punished, except for Alabama. I'll say this too. I feel like if I'm a college football coach, the stakes are high enough for conference championship games that I would want to play. For example, Georgia winning, I got a first round bye. I get to sit back a week and watch everybody, beat each other up in this college football playoff. Same thing for Texas Tech. The deal with the Big 12, guys, I was talking to somebody, I was actually talking to an OSU fan, Oklahoma State fan, about the Big 12 who, I feel like even when we were in the Big 12, we thought we were a good conference and can compete with the ACC and all that stuff. But the Big 12 is weaker now. And I simply said, tell me one out of conference great top 25 opponent that any Big 12 team, specifically Texas Tech and BYU, have played. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nobody. They haven't played anybody but each other, and each other's terrible in terms of the Big 12 conference in general. So the Big 12 conference is weak. It'll be interesting to see how Texas Tech favors against Oregon. I think they'll get beat out of the building wherever it's at. But I don't know. I think, everybody's expanding the field, all this stuff. I don't think that's the case. I do think the committee is weird. I know when we had the BCS rankings, we all wanted it to be, people, because the system did this or that, but analytics have come so far in the last 5 to 6 years that I think we could come up with a better system and come up with the top 12 teams. Don't include the group of 5 folks unless they're just, we did that back when I think like people like Memphis and all those were actually competing against
Right.
Power 4 teams. But these guys, James Madison, Tulane, I'm sorry if you're a listener and you're a fan of James Madison, Tulane, but there's no competition. This is going to be a complete debacle against Oregon and against Ole Miss, and it's going to be embarrassing for those programs, but they're going to collect. They're going to collect some cash doing it, and it'll be interesting to see how that favors them in the future for NIL. Speaking of the college football playoff, it's transition. Notre Dame didn't make the college football playoff, decides to opt out of a bowl. Okay? Goodfella, your thoughts?
Man, I'm kind of indifferent about it. I think the way they were played in this whole system of being in the picture for to be in the bowl season and to be kicked out and idle, it's a slap in the face to Notre Dame. It's a gut punch, we are in position to be able to play for a national championship game, and now we're pushed to go to a bowl game. So I'm indifferent about it. I think if they had a rule to where you couldn't opt out, maybe, but they have it to where you can opt out. So, they're not doing anything that's illegal. But I think it's gonna push it to where this is going to be a decline in how we look at the bowl season. Like, does it continue? Right now, will we have what? Notre Dame is out, K-State, Rogers, Temple, KU, K-State, UCF, several teams that's declined their bowl appearance. One due to coaches changes, one due to players just going into the portal and they're not available to play in the bowl season. So are we going to get to a point to where the bowl games are non-existent just because the nature of when the games are played, it doesn't really benefit the players unless you just need more film for the younger ones who are just looking to get more film to be able to transfer, or just what it was like for them in that program. But it does make a financial hit for schools, because I know there is some financial gain for universities that participate in the bowl season. But again, what's the cost reward to that? Is it worth it? And Notre Dame feels like it's not, along with the other 8 different schools who decided to decline, which I won't be surprised if we see more schools decline their bowl position play. I am curious I haven't looked into this. If a school like Notre Dame declines their opportunity to play, will they allow other schools the opportunity to play in place of Notre Dame? I don't know if you guys read anything about that or heard anything about that. I am curious to see how many teams drop out and how many other teams want to jump in to take their position to get that financial gain, and also get those looks on film for some of those players, younger players looking to play in a bowl season.
Yeah, so I think it's a forfeit. Sorry, it's a forfeit. It's a forfeiture here with Notre Dame. I mean, you get a loss. You're 10-3 on the season. You lost 2 games that you played against these opponents that were ranked, and then you decide to forfeit your opportunity to compete again. So you're 10-3, and this has by far been the most ridiculous and wild and crazy college football I've never in my life. We've been so wrapped up in Sooners, and the Sooner success is amazing, and that in and of itself had me so excited about this year. But then everything else going on outside of college football this year, being old school that I am, I loved the bowl games. I absolutely loved the bowl games when they were there. They were so awesome to watch. It meant something. It gave you one more game. It felt like it started, and now it means nothing. And you're right. I mean, and I do think that you have other things like spring practices. With this transfer portal deal, they won't even have the spring games anymore to certain schools because they're afraid of views and people watching and then people bolting after the spring games. I mean, it's changed so much, and you throw in all the college football turnover, hullabaloo, all this crap that's going on everywhere. I don't even know where we're at, other than I know the Sooners are in the playoffs, and it's time to win one because I think we're 0-4 overall in college football playoffs. I like the 12-team format. I agree. I don't like the couple of matchups that you've talked about. I do think Tulane, though, has a bit more of a chance because of all this drama that is surrounding Ole Miss. I mean, are the coordinators coming, staying, or are they going, or what's happening? I don't know what's happening at Ole Miss, and so there might be some advantage there, but.
Only thing for sure about Tulane, there'll be a bus to get into the stadium. That's the only thing they have a chance of doing is getting to the stadium.
Well, I mean, I still, even if they were to win, I still don't think it validates the argument that those kind of teams need to be in there because then you say, well, what are the odds to just continue to win? I mean, one game is one game, and it's not a favorable matchup by any stretch. But you made a compelling argument. Yeah, I didn't think you're an idiot when you said that Alabama would possibly not drop. I just didn't. Given everything else the way you said the conferences would go, I thought that at least there'd be common sense would prevail that they would drop the 10. I mean, but common sense has not been part of this whole scenario this year in college football. And once you kind of get through this first round, then you start to really dive into all these wonderful matchups that can possibly happen. It is crazy again for me to think, though, if the Sooners win a national title, we will finish the season 14-2. I mean, how many games are they playing anymore?
Hey,
I
don't
can't even
complain. Don't complain.
Right now.
I'm sure you could do math, St. Paulo. But
well,
I'd like to get by
the help, but they're talking about adding a game to the SEC schedule and 9 games. I mean, so where does it end? I mean, it's 16
adding
right
a game
now.
to the SEC schedule means dropping off a non-conference game, but I know what you mean. To clarify, by not accepting a bid, Notre Dame does not forfeit technically. But in St. Pablo's mind, he's chalking it up as a forfeit, which okay, I can go there. To answer your question, Goodfella, yes. That's why we're seeing so many 5 and 7 teams that are accepting bowl bids because they go down to the next possible candidate that could potentially play in the bowl. And so we're going to have some pretty crappy bowl games, in my opinion. But at the end of the day, I don't care about anything until December 19th, 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. I'm also excited that the Longhorns from South will be enjoying their Cheez-Its in probably Orlando, Florida at the State Camping World Stadium against the Michigan Wolverines. And I might watch that just to watch the Longhorns not play in the college football playoff. So, but to circle back on the not accepting a bid week, I think it's extremely weak. I do not blame the Iowa States, the Kansas States, those folks that have lost their head coach in the last 3 weeks to a month. I do not blame them at all. It's something new, but it kind of makes sense. It sucks for the kids, though. Yeah. And that's where that's what bothers me is Notre Dame played their last football game, not knowing it was going to be their last football game, thinking they were going to be in the college football playoff, And then, in my opinion, you've got adults that are pissing and moaning about being drug along by the college football committee and took those seniors' last opportunity to take the field away from them because of politics that they want to try to show. And that does bother me. And I don't know if the team had an opinion. I would assume they didn't, because if I was a senior and I didn't know that I played my last game, that's a regret that I would have for the rest of my life. And, especially for those folks that, those kids that aren't, good enough for the NFL. They were just college athletes. I say just college athletes like it's something not spectacular, but they were college athletes that got their last chance taken away from them. I think those are the losers in this situation, unfortunately.
And I agree. And I think the fan base to some level too, because I love watching the seniors compete, and you're paying a lot of money, the university, the contracts and all this. And so now, do you revise any contractual deals? I mean, there are NIL deals available because of the marketing factor of watching some of these guys be able to perform on the field. And so Vanderbilt's approach to me was way more respectful, way more honorable, and it was less victim mindset, because you know what? Any of us, even if we were left out, you know what? We did lose 2 games. So, when you lose, you're in that position where you're in that conversation where you could be left out. So that's why the goal is always to win and compete.
Yeah, I think the rumor is that they had a vote with the team, and supposedly the team agreed. I will say this: if they had a vote, it was emotional. It was an emotional vote. It was probably the same night that they found out that they were going to be out of the playoffs. And if you ask me in that room, if I was in there and I was a player, and I'm upset that we didn't get a bid in, of course I'm going to say, no, I'm done. I won't play. But you give me a day or two, 48 hours, like coaches know, 48 hours before you address anything, if you can do that. My answer might change. I may think about, my other teammates who may not be starters, whomever, and am I taking away an opportunity for those players to get one more chance to showcase their skills on that level? So I agree. I think it was too early to make that call, even if they allow players to vote. They voted the same day, I do believe. That they found out that they weren't going to be in the playoffs. So sorry.
If it was a vote, it should have been a teacher vote. Or a teacher vote. Senior vote, sorry. Senior vote.
That's
good. A roll call vote that's documented with the seniors getting more value to their vote.
Well, I agree, because they're the minority.
I agree.
Yeah. Gosh. Okay. And maybe they did. I doubt it, but maybe they did. I think this is, never been a fan of Notre Dame, except for the movie Rudy. Love the movie Rudy. Yes. But you say that a couple times.
You like the Hunchback?
I've never seen the Hunchback movie. I've seen some in real life, but anyway. I think it was weak, and I think there should be a penalty. And the fact that there isn't is only because they're not in a conference. The other teams that were in conferences that have opted out for coaching reasons have received a penalty, but Notre Dame only answers to themselves, and that was honestly the snake that bit them too. So. Anyway, I thought it was extremely weak, and I know what I was going to say. One of the things that I always said when I was coaching is when you make the playoffs, you extend your season, which means you also extend your ability to practice and to compete. And so, there was always that thought that if you did extend your season, then you were getting 2 more weeks of practice and competition that other teams weren't. And so, while Notre Dame is going to check in their pads if they haven't already and move on into the classroom or whatever they do over there, get another Catholicism class in their schedule. I don't know what they do, but OU and those teams that are continuing to compete have more practice, have more competition, get more exposure, and will be better for it. Nothing against Catholicism. Okay. Howard, thank you for your comment. I hope you're not offended. Okay.
Yeah, no, they
Let's
do get
move
more
on.
practice. You're right. Yeah.
Yeah, they get more practice. We should probably move on. Any other comments about the college football playoff bracket snubs or weak bailouts?
But one more we didn't really talk too much about, but that Indiana Ohio State, that was crazy. And this Kirk Cignetti is appropriately confident and arrogant. It's amazing. I mean, that is a dude. He is singularly set on expectations, and I mean, he is locked in. Just watching a lot of the different things on him and hearing him talk, and what he has been able to do at Indiana I almost said basketball, in football, not basketball, is unbelievable in what they've accomplished. So that part of it, that game, the shanked field goal by OSU made me love Tate Sendell a lot more.
Man. Love Sendell.
Yeah, agree. He's a weapon.
Is he coming back? Do we know? Does he stay? He's a junior. Does he leave us, man?
He got 4 more games right now.
Yeah, he has to leave this year, guys.
No, I think he's good. I think he's good to stay. Okay. We'll get more in depth into the rematch with Bama next week in episode 18. But let's transition to the conclusion of every podcast, which is our locks of the week. This is, and correct me if I'm wrong, St. Pablo and Goodfella, this is generally speaking our last week of lock of the weeks as we choose our lock. Okay, we have one more with the Army-Navy game. Is that correct?
That's correct.
That is correct.
Okay.
And I think you have clinched the title at today. Not today, but it's clinched. We are just, this is a respect deal at this point. We're trying to, trying to benefit our records. Is that right?
Oh,
I'm trying to pad the stats here.
Yeah.
I'm so bad right now. It doesn't even. I want to pick last, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah.
Well,
okay. Who wants to go first?
Well. Okay. So can I throw out unless, let's say, if everyone is picking, obviously if you are, I don't know, if you're picking the favorite, it's Navy. And if we all are doing that, shall we go to a tiebreaker for the final game? It doesn't make any difference. You're there, right? Iceberg, there's no way to catch you.
Let's go. Let's have our tiebreaker be the over-under.
Okay.
Choose the over-under.
All right. Well,
Which
Navy's
is
the
what?
favorite. Navy's the favorite. The over-under is 38.5.
Okay. So you seem to be talking a lot, St. Pablo. How about you go first?
Well, I mean, I like Navy.
What did you do last week?
Oh, what did I do? Oh, I think I won last week. That's right. Yeah. Sorry. I did break. I went down again and I came back up. I'm 8-8 on the year, and I'm just hoping to get on the winning side. The way this pattern has gone, I'm not going to, but I'm going to try. Okay. I'm not going to forfeit this opportunity. I will not pull a Notre Dame here and sit this game out, guys, in protest. Okay. So what I'm going to do is go with Navy. Oh, I don't even know, who did I have last week? Do you remember?
Texas Tech at 12.5.
Oh yeah. Texas Tech at 12.5. That ended up being a good one. They dominated BYU, and they did again what they did to them the first time. So, yes, 8-8 on the year, and I'm going to go with Navy midshipmen at -6. And the I'm going to go with I'm going to go with the over 38.5, 39.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. You're going to just give him the game. You went with the over against who?
Army Navy.
Over how many points?
38.5.
38.5.
Silver platter.
Goodfella, you're up. Army Navy, -6.
Oh, okay. I'll go. So last week I had North Texas beating Tulane. Curtain call, North Texas. They end up losing to Tulane. I don't even know what my record is right now.
It would be 5-11.
Okay, so I lost more than I've won this year. Okay. You know what? I'm going out swinging. I am going out swinging. I have Army taking an upset, and they're beating Navy. So no over and under with me. I got a straight up Army beating Navy.
Okay. All right. So going with the underdog. I had Indiana +4 versus Ohio State, which St. Pablo already mentioned his love for Kurt Signetti. And the Indiana Hoosiers win the football Big Ten championship. And so that pushes me to 11-5, which just like the Sooners, if you'd have told me I was going to be 11-5 locks of the week at the beginning of the year, I would have called you crazy, because 11-5 for locks of the week. We've been doing this for, 15 years. I don't know that any of us have ever hit an 11-5. Usually we're about 500 in terms of the winner. I'm going to go with the Navy as a 6-point favorite versus Army. And because St. Pablo went over, I will go under. Not that there's a need for a tiebreaker this year, St. Pablo, but I will give you the opportunity to beat me this week only by taking the under.
2 quick points. It is very sad that Goodfella, not only did you lose with the UNT pick, but OSU fired their coach, incoming coach, before he starts, and so that's because he lost that game, so they already fired him. That's a joke. But yes, the Big 12 is weaker
right now. It's like breaking news.
The Big 12 is weaker because you took out Texas and OU. That argument earlier you're talking about, that's such a simple argument. Of course they're weaker. You took the 2 best teams out of the conference. OU dominated the Big 12, over a decade. And so, they're definitely weaker, but no matter what the crazy talk is, I'm going to say this, 10-2 was my prediction for the Sooners at the beginning of the year. Iceberg, you said no one in the nation except St. Pablo called that.
Yeah, I think we've given you credit the last couple of weeks for that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to pull a Signetti. I'm walking in, inappropriately arrogant and foolishly arrogant, in fact.
Oh, man.
Anything else, gentlemen? Final thoughts before we head into the extended season that are bowls and playoffs. We'll be back next week to talk about the Bama matchup. Probably be a little bit of a shorter podcast, but what do you guys have as final thoughts today? Anything?
Final thought, let's get some guys healthy. I'm excited, man, next Friday. Again, having a Friday night game in December in the playoffs. The team down south did not get into the playoffs. It can't get any sweeter than that. Boomer Sooner.
Absolutely. And this Oklahoma City is on championship magic, NBA world titles coming to OKC, first
Yeah.
ever home playoff game in the metropolitan area of OKC at Norman. It's a beautiful time for that area. And I think there's going to be so much energy down in Norman. And I love that we're hungry to win our first playoff game here. And so I think it's just going to be awesome. What a great opportunity. And is there a blizzard coming in December the 19th down in OKC? Is that the
Not that
projected?
I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm aware of. For me, I just, I want some health, and I want health on the defensive line. I would like to have our Mason Thomas back. I want our defense to be 100% healthy. Then I would like to see some consistency and some energy on the offensive side of the ball. One of the things that the OU players have been saying is we have yet to put all the pieces together and have our complete best game. And my hope is that complete best game comes in the playoffs. And what better time to start than the first week of hosting Alabama in Norman on December 19th. That'd be a great time to have our first complete game where each side of the ball in all three phases has their best game, and we move on victorious. That's my hope. All right. So that will wrap up episode 17. Like, share, follow. Tell your friends and comment. OU, the college football playoff at number 8, hosting Norman. We'll see you then. Sooner.
Texas sucks. Cheez-Its.